Canada's government is refusing to comment on the fact that the world's leading genocide scholars association have determined that Israel's actions in Gaza meet the legal definition of the crime of genocide. See, I reached out to them for comment on this last week, sent several follow-ups, and finally got an answer late Thursday night. And while Mark Carney's office dodged the question entirely, referring me to the nonpartisan public servants at Global Affairs Canada, Foreign Affairs Minister Anita Anand's office actually told me why they weren't going to answer. Quote, as the Prime Minister has previously stated, there is a case in front of the International Court of Justice. As the ICJ is an independent legal body, it would be imprudent to comment. Now that's interesting, because back in 2018, the Canadian government declared Myanmar's military actions against the Rohingya people a genocide and endorsed the findings of a UN mission that said, quote, crimes against humanity have been committed against the Rohingya. And they even, in the motion the House of Commons unanimously supported, urged the UN Security Council to refer the case to the International Criminal Court, despite already commenting through a vote in the House of Commons that Myanmar's actions constituted a genocide. Then there's the case of China's abhorrent treatment of the Uyghurs, which Canada's House of Commons voted to declare a genocide thanks to the support of all opposition MPs and some liberals too. Though then Foreign Affairs Minister Marc Garneau said he abstained, quote, on behalf of the government of Canada, so they did manage to be a little bit spineless there too. On top of that, a Canadian parliamentary subcommittee also actually studied the matter and concluded that China's treatment of the Uyghurs was a genocide and called for sanctions. In these other cases, either the government itself or a majority of parliamentarians in Canada's House of Commons was willing to call something a genocide without waiting for an ICJ ruling, and even called for some of these to go before an international tribunal. So if you can call something a genocide ahead of time and then have it go before an international tribunal, and that isn't imprudent, why would it be imprudent to say something now? It seems to me that it's that Palestine exception again. Meanwhile, Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre took things one step further this week when he referred to the entirety of Palestine as the, quote, Hamas state in a press conference just a few days ago, effectively attempting to label all the civilians in Gaza and the West Bank as being members of this group, something Israel has been using incessantly to try to justify its murder of civilian targets. Here's exactly what Pierre Poilievre had to say.
A Liberal government is intent to recognize Palestine as a state in this fall session. What's your take on it? Are you in favor or do you oppose this?
Mark Carney doesn't know where he stands. He first said he was going to recognize the Hamas state, and then the other day he said that he wasn't recognizing the Hamas state.
I reached out to our friend, Canadian physician Yipeng Ji, who has been on the ground in Gaza amid this genocide. I asked him what he thinks about our government's response to the genocide finding, as well as to Pierre Poilievre's comments. He told me it's, quote, another day of politicians gaslighting Canadians and manufacturing consent for genocide, adding, quote, Anand deferring to the ICJ is incredibly stupid and wrong. As a lawyer, she should know better, and I know someone who is a lawyer who knows her, so she definitely knows better than this. Canada has a legal obligation to end its complicity in Israel's crimes of apartheid, illegal occupation, and genocide. The ICJ rulings last year on illegal occupation and genocide have already made it clear that countries like Canada have the obligation to end active support and involvement in Israel's crimes, while Canada is still sending weapons to Israel and not putting sanctions in place. Maybe Canada should look at what other states like Spain are doing and grow a fucking backbone and do what is the bare minimum in this moment to align itself with Canada's own obligations under international law. But even as most politicians continue to let us down, although I will say the NDP, despite its lack of party status, has actually been trying to close the loopholes that allow Canadian arms to go to Israel, the people are still fighting back. The Global Sumud Flotilla is setting sail to try to break Israel's siege on Gaza. One thing that's interesting about this flotilla relative to its predecessors, the vast majority of which Israel has illegally intercepted on international waters because God forbid one Gazan child be saved from starving to death or be provided with a prosthetic limb. This one is supposed to be the largest to date, according to the organizers, with more than 50 ships taking part with delegations from at least 44 countries. This movement has been taking place since the mid-2000s. See, since 2007, Palestinians have been victims of a comprehensive illegal sea, air, and land blockade imposed by the Israeli occupation. And while some boats did manage to break this siege in the early years of the movement, all have been intercepted or attacked by Israel in international waters since 2010, which is only even potentially legal if the blockade itself is legal, which, spoiler alert, it doesn't seem like it is. Just another international law that Israel has been breaking for a very long time and well before October 7th. Anyway, in 2010, one of these missions turned deadly after Israeli commandos raided the Mavi Marmara in, once again, international waters. The ship was carrying humanitarian aid and more than 600 passengers. Israel killed 10 of these activists and injured dozens of others. This is why it's so important to keep your eyes on this latest massive effort, because they really could break this siege and save some Palestinian lives. All eyes on the Global Sumud Flotilla, and all eyes on Palestine. What do you think of all this?